Okay. Right, so thank you for joining everybody. We've got some more people coming in. So we've got a few people on today. So just to let you all know, the way we can actually see, we know who's registered and who's come in. However, there won't be any recordings of anyone's name. So any sort of comments you want to put in the comments box, it is all anonymous. So do feel free to interact as much as you can. So my name is Karen and I'm the Clinical Operations Manager here at CiC. So just a little bit about me. So apart from my work here at CiC, where I work with adults, outside of that, I'm a psychotherapist. I've been a psychotherapist for almost coming up to about 20 years now. And in my private practice, I tend to work more with young people and families. So my primary focus has always been on children and young people, really. I particularly work with those young people who have been impacted by domestic abuse and young people who are at risk of violence. That might be things like gang-related drugs, knife crime, illegal activities, that sort of thing. I got into psychotherapy because my passion's always been to help young people, help their families to foster a happier future, really. And aside from my career and my working life, I'm a single mum of 2 boys. I've got one in secondary school and one in primary school. So everything we'll be talking about today, it's probably in the midst of all of my life. So today we're going to be having a discussion around family wellbeing. We're going to be talking about how managing a family can be challenging. So we're going to be talking about the importance of self-care, boundaries, and how this can foster positive family wellbeing. We'll also be exploring effective strategies and practical tips to create a nurturing family environment. There is going to be an opportunity at the end to ask any questions, but throughout, please do feel free to use the chat, put your ideas forward, put your experiences forward, and any sort of hints and tips that you've got as well. It'll be really helpful to be able to share that with everyone. So today's agenda, we're going to be looking at family wellbeing, parental wellbeing, children's wellbeing, family strategies, and then we will go on to your questions. So we'll start with family wellbeing. So what is family wellbeing? So family wellbeing can't actually be defined as one single thing, as it incorporates a number of different elements. So family wellbeing refers to the overall health, happiness, and functioning of a family unit. Okay, so encompasses, get my words out, it encompasses multiple dimensions that contribute to the quality of life of all the family members. And at the centre of family wellbeing is the physical health, the mental health, emotional and social health. All of these promote growth and development within a family unit. So family wellbeing also includes aspects such as healthy communication, financial stability, and mutual support and respect. So having these areas sets a great baseline for all family members to ensure that they feel safe, they feel secure, as well as having the opportunity to pursue their passions, build relationships, and to develop those all-important life skills that take us through the future. And in addition, family members should also always be able to rely on each other. They should be able to rely on each other for support, love, emotional connections. All of these things provide a great basis for the future. So is family wellbeing important? So whilst there are a number of challenges amongst our families, particularly in this day and age where you've got things like social media, you've got AI and everything else that's taking over, family wellbeing is still super important. It's a great baseline to create an environment where all family members feel safe, secure and valued. A family's overall well-being can be really dependent on, as we've already said, the physical, mental and financial health. Okay, so there are various ways in which we can actually support these areas. So with physical health, that can be managed through things such as healthy eating habits, regular exercise and preventative health care. In eating habits and exercise can actually come in from a young age, really. You can bring that into your family network. You can start building those sort of habits very, very early on. Mental health and emotional well-being, these can be improved through positive coping skills, stress management, and also use of the mental health services. I know some of those are quite limited at the moment, but there is support out there, and we will come on to that a little bit later. But also a level of financial stability is also necessary for families to be able to provide basic needs for their unit. So in a nutshell, despite any challenges, through communication, understanding and commitment, families can create a strong, positive family unit that's supportive and resilient, and therefore it's essential that we all make family well-being a priority so that each family member can thrive. Parental well-being. So parental well-being is something that benefits the whole family's well-being. Okay, so whether you're a single parent, whether you're a mum, a dad, a carer, even aunts and uncles get involved. The bottom line is we all want what's best for our children. We want our young people to be safe. We want them to be fit. We want them to be happy and healthy. However, with all of our hopes and dreams for them, it can be really easy to forget about ourselves. And quite often we all forget about ourselves and we forget about our own health and our own well-being. And we forget about the importance of that too. So I'm sure you've all heard the saying that you can't give from an empty cup, or you have to help yourself before you help anybody else. And of course, it's that whole concept of putting your own oxygen mask on before you've put anybody else's on. And being a parent is no different to any of that. If anything, there's so much more pressure on us as parents. It's a full-time job. It's a 24/7. You don't get annual leave. You don't get sick pay. You don't get any of that. So it's really important to make sure that you take time that we actually take time out and take care of our own mental health and well-being. This helps us to build our own resilience. And ultimately, what it does is it helps us to cope more effectively with the demands of being that parent. So I've got this quote from UNICEF that I felt really summed up parental well-being quite nicely. So parental well-being is crucial for effective parenting. Taking care of our own mental health allows parents to build resilience and cope effectively with the demands of parenting, and ultimately benefiting the whole family. So with all of that said, it is inevitable that our own life will impact our ability to focus on our health and well-being. And there's various ways in which our lives can be impacted. That can be things from finances, our own personal history, our own experiences, our own mental health and where we're up to, our physical health, particularly as you get older, you start to feel it more in your body, our relationships, work and pressures. We're in an environment where the work pressure seems to be increasing, and we see a lot of that, particularly in EAP work. And extended family members as well. We often get put under pressure from other family members too. So this is a bit of an endless list of things that can actually impact our mental health. Please do feel free to use the chat and add your own things that you feel will impact mental health as well. Jake, if you can just shout them out when somebody's put anything through. Menopause, yeah. EAP is an employee assistance program. So we support the mental health and well-being of employees. So, no problem. So what's the impact of these situations then? Sleep, yeah. Sleep is a great one. The weather. And actually, you are right, though. The weather does really play a big part in terms of how people are feeling. Being a line manager is like having more children. Yes, I completely get that. Is there any I've missed there, Jake? I feel like more popped up.
Yeah, there was one more as well. Caring responsibilities.
Yeah, carrying responsibilities as well.
We've also got, they're flying in now. Economic pressures.
Yep.
We've got a question for you
We've
as
got a
well, Kieran.
question. Yeah,
How
go
do
on
you
then.
find the time to ensure you are looking after your well-being whilst managing all your responsibilities, especially with a toddler?
When he's primary school, he's not a toddler anymore, thank God. But I say that, but I miss him being a toddler. We'll come on to that when we look at the self-care stuff. I will go through that anyway.
Yep. Other impacts we've had, bereavements.
Bereavements, yes, and actually that can have a huge impact because sometimes we don't realise the impact it has on us before it starts impacting our family.
We've also had blended families.
Blended families, yeah.
Yep. Getting the kids to school.
Getting the kids to school is probably the worst 20 minutes of my entire day, and I'm completely with it. One of them's a teenager that doesn't get out of bed, and the other one's usually at the door screaming that I'm going to be late for school. So you have two opposite ends. So I completely understand all of those, and it's true, all of those different things can really impact us. And ultimately, the impact of that on us is that we become tired, we can become irritable, we can become quite stressed out, and even sometimes we can become a little bit bitter and resentful. But even with all of that, we quite often become quite anxious and overwhelmed. And all of those things then lead to frustration. And that frustration we often take out on ourselves. We often take it inwards, and then that ultimately will impact our family well-being. So how do we ensure that we manage our own health and well-being? So here are some of the things that we can do as parents. And there's 4 things that we're going to be focusing on today. So we're going to be focusing on self-care, boundaries, parental guilt, and burnout. So self-care. So self-care can be anything from replenishing and self-care can help replenish our energy, our focus, and our positivity. But when we're talking about self-care, this doesn't have to be anything expensive or time-consuming. Although don't get me wrong, if you have the time and you have the money, by all means, go and do the most expensive, longest bit of self-care that you possibly can. But today, I'm more going to focus on things like self-care, such as just taking out little bits of time for you as a person, not you as a parent, not you as a carer, not you as a boss or an employee, just a bit of self-care for you as an individual. And that can be anything from anything in this list we've got. And I'm sure there's loads more. So feel free again to use the chat, add anything you absolutely want to add in there. But there's a few things here that resonate with me, and there'll be a few that a few of you will do. So one of the things somebody asked me earlier, what do I do for my self-care? So I get up about 45 minutes before the kids. And I never used to. This is actually, we'll come on to parental guilt in a little while as well. So one of the things I'll do is I'll get up 45 minutes before the kids. I never used to. I used to be with them, getting up at the same time, rushing around with them. But I found that I'll get up that little bit earlier. I do a little workout. I don't have time to get to the gym or anything like that, but I do enjoy a workout. So I'll get up 45 minutes before they do. I'll do a 20-minute workout. I'll have a shower, and then I'll just sit and have my morning coffee. And for me, that is my space of work, of self-care. That's the only time I really get in the day to go, right, okay, let me set my day up properly. And it really helps because it stops me being as rushed as the kids are. So it means I can manage that a little bit better. I know I said earlier it's usually like my worst time of the day, and it is. That's because I'm trying to get them out the door. But I do find that having that space for me before all of that starts, then it does make life that little bit easier. We've got loads of them coming through. I like that one, making bread. I love baking. Baking is a little thing I love doing. Oh, it's always been my little thing. It's what I do if I can't sleep. I get up and bake. I love baking. I've actually got an employee, one of my members of staff was saying that, I know I've got laying in a bath here, but I've got a member of staff who was saying that actually, no, I'm not laying in a bath. She goes, she likes a shower, has to have a shower at the end of a day because the representation of you literally the water is going from the top to the bottom and is washing away all the stresses of the day. And so she was saying there's something really therapeutic about knowing that the water's flushing you all the way through and getting the water down in that drain, and you're going, that is me washing away my stresses for the day, which I actually thought was really valuable because I've always thought laying in a bath, but having that shower feeling sounds absolutely amazing. Having a chat with friends and family, that can be something that you can do whether you're going on the school run or at the end of the day when everybody's gone to bed. There could be absolutely anything. It's whatever works for you. Jake, I've seen loads of stuff pop through. Is there anything else on there that's we've not got
You've
on
picked
here?
up the main consensus. A lot of the ones revolve around physical activity. There's a really nice comment I saw though, and it was looking after yourself is good modeling for your kids. I thought that was a really lovely message.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that. That's a great one. I feel like I missed one. I saw something pop up about colouring. I've got a colouring, love colouring. Colouring's always a great one. But I don't do it so much anymore because when the kids were a little bit younger, they used to be more in touch with doing it with me. But we used to sit and have a Sunday morning. We'd sit for half an hour and just sit with some music on in the background and colour together. I've just seen that Nirvana spa one, best spa ever.
Yeah, we've also saw a gardening one in there as well, which is probably quite a
Oh,
relevant one in
gardening.
this climate.
Yeah, gardening's a nice one. I like to say perfect weather for it, but I think it's a bit too hot for gardening. It's nice. It's chilling out weather. Sitting in a pub on my own. Love that one. And you know what? It's about making that time and space. Reading, yeah. And there's different things that you can read as well, things that you enjoy. Another set of child things. Okay, so these are just some tips of things that you can actually do for self-care. The bottom line is there's no right or wrong way to do it. This is about you finding something for you, something that you enjoy that will just give you that little bit of space to remember who you are and what you actually need as well. And as a parent, somebody mentioned it earlier, we are often overcome with guilt. We will come on to looking at parental guilt anyway. But what we have to remember is that self-care is really important. So we need to remember to try and change that mindset and recognizing that self-care is not selfish. You know, we often kind of go, oh, no, I can't do self-care because then I should be doing something else for the kids or I should be doing something for my partner. But actually, self-care is not selfish. If anything, it's far from it. It's about looking after yourself. Because taking little and regular steps of self-care means that you'll be a lot more resilient and you'll be able to manage the demands of family life. And like Jake said, read out there, that quote somebody's just said is fantastic because it models fantastic behaviors. It models to the kids that self-care is super important. So, moving on from self-care, then to boundaries. So we often view, I mean, we talked about selfishness and guilt. So we often view boundaries as being quite selfish as well. We view boundaries as an act of selfishness, but is it really selfish to put your own well-being first? And is it really selfish to want to protect yourself? And really, actually, is it really selfish to want to ensure that you have enough energy to support your family? Absolutely not. When we're thinking of boundaries, especially when you feel really uncomfortable with it, it's really important to remind yourself as to why you're setting boundaries and what are the benefits of that. Okay, so on that note, what do boundaries mean to you? Again, use the chat. What do boundaries mean for you? So boundaries are not just about one thing, being able to tell people no, yeah, time alone in the bathroom, I like that one. But I'd like to think you can find somewhere else alone as well, not necessarily just the bathroom. Guilt seems to be coming up quite a lot. I'm glad we're covering parental guilt because that's come up a few times now. So boundaries is not just about one thing or one area. Boundaries about setting clear foundations. That's for you, for your children, extended family, friends, work, and our lifestyle. And I think it's become a lot harder to set boundaries of our lifestyle, particularly in the generation that we live in, the world that we live in, with everything being remote. It's really hard to set those boundaries. Don't get me wrong, I'm terrible for it. It's one of my things that I'm really working hard on at the moment is to try and set those boundaries in. So when we're thinking about our lives, we're surrounded by do's and don'ts all the time, but actually we don't always recognize that these are all boundaries. I mean, as parents, we set rules for our kids. The school sets rules. The society sets rules for us as well. They're all boundaries that we adhere to. And don't get me wrong, we all know kids love pushing the boundaries, particularly when they're younger and then particularly when they get to teenage, they will always try and push. But they also know there's always consequences as well. So why don't we as parents set boundaries for ourselves? So is it guilt, time? And I know a few of you have already popped that through that actually, yeah, it is guilt and it is time. But whatever the reason is, it's really important to ensure that we set healthy boundaries because that will really help us to support ourselves and it will help us to manage our own well-being. Oh, I'm a bit behind in my PowerPoint, apologies. So when we think about setting boundaries, it's really helpful to start thinking about the wants and needs. So consider what you want and consider what you need, as well as what your children want and need, but also thinking about what you as a family want and what do you need. And once you've established these, it's about ensuring that you communicate this to relevant parties. That's a good one. Taking a full lunch break. You'd be surprised how often we don't see that. Or how often we do see that people don't take a full lunch break. So once you've established the wants and needs, it's about ensuring that you communicate this out to the relevant parties. Because as somebody's just said earlier, it's extended family, the demands people put on you. because you can guarantee that for example, you can guarantee that there'll always be that one person, you're in the middle of something or you're in a deadline, you're in a rush, and there's always that one person that pops by just unannounced. They just turn up. It's always that one. But it's really important to then communicate your boundaries, learning to say no. I mean, no doesn't have to be anything, that doesn't have to be aggressive, it doesn't have to be harsh, but it just needs to be something quite assertive to say, actually, something as simple as sort of saying, well, thank you for popping by and I'd really love to spend some time with you, but I'm just in the middle of something, so how about we arrange a better time that suits us both and we can really sit down and spend some time together. But just in future, you know, if you give me a call, at least it means you won't have a wasted trip, because that way you're having a simple conversation, and you're having a simple conversation and there's no hard feelings, because you are setting some time away, you're setting some time aside, and you're making sure that they know that I do want to see you, I do want to speak to you, just right now this isn't the right time for me. So setting boundaries with kids can be anything from a routine to no-go areas or limitations on the things that they have and do. And but again, it's really important to remember that it's not selfish to put limitation on the things that the kids ask of you. We can all turn around and go, actually, I feel really bad because they want something and I'm saying no. But remember that it's actually essential. It's essential for them and it's essential for you. Because the more time that you the more time you spend taking care of yourself and recharging your own batteries, the more positive energy that you will have to be able to give to your family. So finding the right balance between your own needs and your child's needs, your partner's needs, family, whoever that might be, is something that every one of us deserves to discover. And it then soon becomes a win-win situation. So parental guilt, I know a few of you have already mentioned guilt. Is there anything you want to pop up, Jake? Because I can see a lot of stuff coming through there. Was there anything about boundaries in there?
There was quite a few about boundaries. A lot of it started off by just simply saying no, and then it went quite a bit more detail. A few
Yeah.
people saying about leaving work on time. Others were
Yeah.
saying about their lunch break being an important factor.
Yeah, and actually just taking that space, and it's wherever you find that. Creating that work-life balance is really important as well.
Got
So
others that
parent,
say what they spend time, sorry, Kieran, when they spend
no, sorry, go
time,
on.
they limit their time on social media, and they not to always be the organizer of everything in their life.
That's a good one. Do you know what? I'm probably guilty of that. I'm one of those that's always I have to get it. I have to be the one that's in control and doing it all. But that's probably a good one that I should probably take from too. So what is parental guilt? So parental guilt is anything from the hardest thing is the first bound. What was that one? Sorry, Jake, I only caught half of that.
The hardest thing is setting the first boundary. You think
Yeah.
everyone will hate you.
Yeah, you do, and it really is, because you think all these negative thoughts will pop into your head and you go, no, no, no. But it's about taking it back to remembering why you're setting that boundary. And you'll be surprised the response you get when people understand why you're setting that boundary. You'll have a much more positive response than you think. So moving on to parental guilt then. So this can be anything from the level of screen time, telling our kids what to eat, telling them off, them being tired ourselves. It can be work. It could be the fact that we feel guilty because we put our kids in after school club, or they've gone to bed after you've had a little bit they've had a mini meltdown, but it's been bedtime and we've had a bit of a battle trying to get them to bed. Or it can be when we struggle with our own emotions. Whatever it is, as a parent, there is always something that we end up feeling guilty about. You know it yourself that within comes to the family and you'll suddenly feel guilty about something. A few of you mentioned it earlier, you feel guilty about self-care. But what ends up happening is we start feeling guilty, and as a result, we start comparing ourselves to others. But I've got to say it now, and nobody shoot me down for this, but let me tell you now, there's absolutely no such thing as a perfect parent. And if anybody tries to tell you that they are the perfect parent, they are lying, because we all want to feel like we're the perfect parent, but there is no such thing. We all want to do the best by our children. We all want them to be happy, and that's how we end up with parental guilt. But comparing ourselves to the family that lives next door, or the parent that always looks prim and proper at the gate, who never looks stressed out, never looks worried, or comparing ourselves to The perfect looking family that we see during the street, it's an absolute myth. There is no right or wrong way to parent. There's no right way to parent, I should say. It's about finding something that works for you, finding something that works for your family, and that is what makes it perfect for you. Yeah, the perfect social media family. It just doesn't exist. You know, it's just all a myth. So what can we do to manage parental guilt? So the few things here that I want to talk about today, things that we can do to help ourselves. So it's one of them is focusing on the here and now. Try to take a step back. And again, a lot of this, well, you're welcome. It's one of those things I'm always very much like, oh, but that person can do it. Why can't I do it? And then you have to remind yourself that it just doesn't exist. That perfectness doesn't exist. Everybody's lives are different. Sorry, I'll go back to this. So focusing on the here and now. And this is easy to say, much harder to do, and I completely appreciate that, but it's trying to start implementing some of these things. It's taking that step back and looking at the bigger picture. Does it really matter that your child had a little bit more screen time today? Is it really going to impact them as much as you think it will? And I've probably talked about screen time quite a bit because that's my biggest bugbear. I'm the hardest on myself to go, oh my God, they've been on their computers for an hour now, and they were only meant to play for half an hour. But ultimately, how much of an impact is that really going to have? Is it going to have such a negative impact? And 9 times out of 10, if it's a little bit more and it's a one-off, no, it's not. And if you're finding that you are getting irritated by things like that, then maybe it's more about you needing to take some time out. It's taking some time for you, take a bit of space, take a few minutes of self-care, and remind yourself that actually tomorrow's another day. They are kids, they will keep pushing you, but it's about how we respond to that and how much it impacts us. Talk to other parents. We shy away from talking to other parents. Exactly like we said, we don't want to be judged. We don't want to come across like we're not that perfect parent, and we don't want people to misunderstand us. But talking to other parents who have got kids similar ages, or even people who've got more grown up children, what you'll actually find is everybody's in the same boat, or will have experienced it, or are going through that, or have a friend that's going through that. It makes such a big difference just talking to other people about it, talking to other parents, maybe not so much the non-parents, because then people do think, oh, I wouldn't do that. But when you become a parent, suddenly you realize it's not as easy as it looks on the outside. And like we said, perfection doesn't exist. So that validation from other parents can be really powerful, just to know that you're not alone, and it is perfectly normal to feel all those things. It's perfectly normal to feel guilty for things. So focus on the positives and those little wins. So rather than feeling guilty about what went wrong and didn't go according to plan for today, try and focus on the little things that did. So for example, they might have had that extra half an hour screen time, but actually they ate all their dinner without complaining that there was too much veg on their plate or they didn't want that to eat. They ate it perfectly fine and went to bed on time without the usual battle. And maintain perspective. Quite often parental guilt comes from the inside. It comes from us feeling inadequate. It comes from us feeling like we didn't give them what they need. We didn't give them what we think they need. We didn't give them that expensive game that they wanted to play. We didn't take them on holiday when all their friends were going on holiday. But it's really important to remind yourself that you are giving them the best you can. You are being the best person that you can. And actually your best is good enough. And communicating this with your children can go a really, really long way. And we will come on to communication shortly. And like I said at the start of this, I know it's a lot easier said than done, particularly when you're in that moment. It's really hard to take that step back. But this is why self-care is really important, because it will help you to manage your own emotions and it helps you to feel more in control of yourself. And often a lot of guilt comes from the way that we react to things. And actually, then if we take a step back and we look at it and we think, were we really upset with our child? Actually, it's probably not something that they've done. It might actually be that there's something going on for us. And the reality is we are human. We have our own issues. We have our own stresses. We have our own unresolved issues. And unfortunately, sometimes our kids can trigger that. So it's important to make sure that we take a step back, we pause in that moment and really start to think about that situation, try to reflect and focus on the here and now. And a big thing is it's really important to remember it's okay to apologize. In fact, it is a great thing to do because you're modeling good behaviors. If you've done something, you've reacted in a moment of, in a moment of stress, and you're feeling stressed out, you're overwhelmed, and the kids have done something, and you've probably become more irritable than you normally would. It's really important to make sure that you are apologizing. Explain that to them. Was there anything on the? I could see it popping through. Jake, was there anything on the back of that?
A load of comments about it, Kieran, and a lot of people mirroring the importance of when you talked about discussing concerns with other parents. A lot of people said it was really invaluable to helping them just look at it from a different perspective and make a more informed decision when whatever it is they need to do with their family.
Brilliant. Thank you. So parental burnout, this is a word we don't often hear. Okay, so we'll hear a lot of people talking about burnout at work. We hear people talking about just general burnout, but I don't think I hardly ever hear anybody talking about parental burnout. And again, is this something because we're not aware of it, or is it something that we keep to ourselves, or is it actually we don't want to talk about it because we're going to feel guilty? Or is it because we don't want to be seen not to be that perfect parent that I mentioned earlier? So what is parental burnout? So and this comes out to you before I put it out there. What do you think is parental burnout? What does it mean? No? When you're done. Yeah, pretty much. Juggling everyone's needs, yeah. Just had enough. Absolutely. Feeling physically and mentally exhausted. Yes, and overwhelmed and exhausted. Absolutely. So what is parental burnout? Yeah, having no energy to have fun with your kids, yeah. And that's really important to actually have the energy to have fun. I think everybody's saying everything in a very similar sort of style. So parental burnout refers to the chronic exhaustion that comes from the demands of balancing parenting life with life situations and everyday demands. So it's pretty much what somebody said at the beginning is when you're just done. And parental burnout can be caused by so many different factors. It can be things like poor boundaries, lack of support, being spread too thin, and actually the demands of your work can then come into your home life. And as a parent, you just feel burnt out. And the list really goes on. And as a parent, we spend so much of our time trying to get it right all the time. We spend so much of our time trying to almost just have it all figured out. And we have this perception of assuming that we have to have everything figured out. We always we try really hard to be in control of our own emotions. But actually, I mean, how true is it? How much in control are we? And the fact is, we're constantly trying to keep on top of things. We're trying to keep on top of life, and that in itself is absolutely exhausting. So without proper self-care, personal forgiveness, because we are, as we've said earlier, we will often feel very guilty about things that we do. This can lead to parental burnout. So what are the signs? We've got things such as low mood, irritability, brain fog, sleep. I know somebody mentioned that earlier. And obviously you've got that you start becoming detached. You don't do it on purpose, but ultimately if you're tired, you will detach from the family, you will detach from kids. You might want to either sleep more, or you might feel too tired. You might actually be able to be in a situation where you feel like you can't get to sleep and just feeling really overwhelmed. Okay. But with all mental health conditions, they can all present themselves very differently. So although there is a list here, these are just some of the things and some of the signs that are out there. It's not going to look the same for everybody. And it doesn't always happen straight away as well. Sometimes we don't even recognize where we're up to. sometimes we don't notice that we are feeling these things until you somebody stops you and says, "Are you all right?" And then suddenly you burst into tears. And I am one for that. It takes me until somebody says, "Are you all right?" And then I go, actually, and then I burst out into tears and I go, "Oh my God, no, I'm not." And I didn't realize. So it's really important to make sure that we are trying to have that reflection. There are some stages of parental burnout, and if the stages are not, if we don't sort of deal with it when we are going from mild burnout, it can progress into more serious levels of parental burnout. So we've got mild burnout. These can be those sort of minor ones. Well, I say minor, but those ones that most of us probably experience. We've got a bit of sleep, a bit of irritability, frustrations, and then it can go. That happened at every midwife appointment. Yep, I remember that one. And you go, "No, I'm not all right." But it's always that moment when it has to be that right person asks you if you're okay. And then it just all comes flooding out. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier about talking to people. It's really important to talk to people because it will come out quicker. So burnout. So you got anything from mild burnout, moderate to severe as well. But it's really important to remember that you do need to get professional help. If you feel that you're at the point of even moderate to severe burnout, getting professional help is really important. And when I say that, it's about getting help through the GP, trying to accessing a therapist. And therapy, like I said before, you can get it throughout your EAP as well. And there's family support groups out there. Friends and family are really helpful. They might not be professionals, but if you're at that mild to moderate stage, your friends and family are super important. But it's also really important to make sure that you take that time out for that self-care. Focus on the here and now and work on letting go of those unrealistic expectations. That little voice that goes in your head, I've turned around, and that little voice that says, "But you should be doing it like this. Your kids should be doing this." It's about remembering that, actually trying to let go of some of that, because those should be feelings are quite often really unrealistic. And just to focus on self-love and self-compassion. And all of these things can help you to not only overcome parental burnout, but actually it can help prevent it in the first place. So I'm really conscious of time. I've taken a lot longer than I told Jake I would be. So I'm going to go on to children's wellbeing. So how can we as parents support our children's wellbeing? Okay, so our children's wellbeing is determined by their environment. This might be their family, their school, their friends, and the community around them. And I've taken this quote from the NSPCC because again, I thought it was really quite a powerful quote. "Promoting children and young people's wellbeing is a key part of keeping them safe, helping them develop, and ensuring that they have positive outcomes into adulthood." So the Children's Society states that now 1 in 6 children are likely to have a mental health condition, and 52% of 17 to 23-year-olds have experienced their mental health getting worse in the last 5 years. Are we surprised at this stat? Given the way the world is, given social media, influences that they've got, AI and all this YouTube influencers, TikTok, absolutely not surprised at that. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 1 in 4 or something like that. COVID as well, yeah. There's still after effects of COVID. I work in a secondary school, and the year 10 and 11 kids who were impacted by COVID when they were moving from year 6 to 7, it still impacts them here today. So we're not surprised, and particularly with the increasing demands on the NHS and the cost of living crisis, young people are just not getting the support that they need to. So what can we do as parents to help them? Communication is so important. Having an open communication, even when it feels uncomfortable. Sometimes there are things that we don't want to say to our kids because we might feel uncomfortable about it, or actually we might think that they might not be ready to have these conversations. But regardless of that, having a two-way open communication opens the doors for your child to come to you when they're in their time, when they're in their hour of need. And as children age, as we know, they come to teenagers, and suddenly trying to speak to them is just absolutely, any communication from them is non-existent. You talk to them and you get a grunt. So it's really important to make sure that we create that communication channel as early as possible, because that will ensure that when they hit that teenage stage, it is already instilled in them. And when life gets difficult for them, and they know that you are there. They know that they can have that two-way communication with you. There might become points where that communication can be difficult. There might be that point where they start sitting in their room a little bit more. So sometimes it's about changing the way you communicate with them. It might be that actually, do you know what, I'm just going to sit here with you, if that's okay. I'll sit here in your room with you if that's all right. And that will then they'll know that you're still there. You're still there for them to talk to whenever they need it. Trying to build those levels of communication is a real gradual process. It comes from modeling behaviors. So, for example, when you feel overwhelmed and you've raised your voice, or something's happened, it's okay to talk to your child and tell them what you're feeling. It's okay to apologize to them for the way you reacted to certain things, and to tell them that you feel overwhelmed and it's all right to talk about it, because that will help them to know that when I feel overwhelmed, I can have that conversation. But alongside communication, I know somebody said it earlier, is listening to them and just being there with them in their moment. So when your child talks, and this is really hard to do, but remember that nothing is more important than what your child is saying to you in that moment. Put that phone down, put that laptop down, because nothing's more important than letting your child know that they are being heard, and it will build a really good basis for communication. And I know that's really hard because we're all working, particularly when you're working from home. They'll come and speak to you and you'll kind of go, oh, in a minute. I'm the worst for it. My son said to me the other day, so you're always working. And honestly, that's hit me like a knife. I thought, oh my God, all my kids ever see is that I'm always working. So it's really hard when you get to that point. And this is where, again, boundaries comes in place, setting those boundaries at work so you know that you can be there for them, to talk to them, to listen to them. Setting boundaries with your kids. We talked about it for us, but it's never too late to set boundaries for them as well. As beneficial as it is for us, it's also important for them, because it can help them to feel supported. It helps them to feel safe and secure. And they're surrounded by boundaries all the time at school. And they're surrounded by boundaries in society. So if we can create them at home as well, it will help them to feel that little bit safer. Setting routines, and it can sound really simple, and actually sometimes it can sound really pointless, but actually setting a good routine for your kids can help ground them as they grow. And it all comes back to, again, the boundaries. I mean, you don't always have to stick to them. It's quite nice sometimes kind of pushing those boundaries with them, but having a good routine, particularly like as a good sleep pattern, is really beneficial to help them, and it will aid their well-being as well. And self-care, we said it earlier, teaching them about self-care. They can see you focusing on your self-care. It's about teaching them how they can do it too. Self-care can be a number of things, whatever it means for them and whatever it means for you. And some basic breathing techniques are really helpful as well. Things such as belly breathing, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where you're thinking about your senses. What can you see? What can you hear? What can you touch and taste? Reflection and gratitude. It's really important with kids, particularly when they're at a point where they feel like nothing's going right for them, particularly when they're struggling, to start helping them to be able to reflect on what their day was like. So maybe to think about 1 to 3 good things that have happened for them, and 3 things that they're grateful for. It's a great way to give them a bit of space, to encourage them to have a bit of space to reflect on their day. But also it's a great conversation piece as well. And suddenly what you'll find is they'll go, oh, I didn't have such a bad day after all. And it's a great one for us as well to go, actually, I didn't have such a bad day. It was just a couple of things that happened that day. And journaling's always a great way to encourage reflection. I mean, I'm always one to say good old pen and paper is the most effective way to journal, because there's something really powerful about expressing your thoughts from paper to pen. But young people today, very few of them will go with pen and paper. I mean, I work with a lot of young people, and one of them actually, which I thought was fantastic, and a few of the others have started using it, is they really like music, really into writing their own songs. So they started doing it to songs, writing their own music. But using that as a way of journaling, because they're writing out, they're singing out, writing out, rapping, whatever that looks like, is their thoughts for the day and reflecting on their day. Oh, just one piece that I didn't forget to mention on there is actually, although there are lots of things that we can do as parents to support our children's well-being, do remember that if you feel that it is getting to a point where it's getting too much, it's really important to seek professional help. Do reach out, get them into a place where you can access support. There's absolutely no shame in ensuring that your child gets the support that they need. And a lot of the time we will feel guilty for it, but it's if it's the best thing for them and if it's what they need, absolutely do reach out. I'm not going to read them all out because I am conscious of time and I know some people are already dropping off. But there's just a few things here where just to share there's just some signs here where to help us to recognise when our children might need professional support. And of course, again, like with us, they might not apply to everybody. And there are some things that are not listed on here. But the bottom line is, you know your child. If they are acting different or they're behaving differently, try and have that conversation with them, speak to them to understand what is happening for them, and if it is necessary, if you do feel it's necessary, seek out that support. I love that one, understanding your child's love language. Love that. So I'm going to move on to family strategies. So I want to look at some of the things that we can do as a family to bring it all together, to encourage positive family well-being, and use the chat to add any suggestions that you might have as well. So these are some of the things that we do some of these. So one of them is family time, doing something together. Look, whether that's on a weekend, on a Friday night, you're going to have dinner in the lounge and you sit in front of the TV and watch a movie together, or having board games. We've recently, it was gifted to us by a friend, actually. We've got a game that we play together and we connect with a friend who's in her house with her kids, and it's a little game called Outsmarted that you can have on your phone. So it's a great way to be able to bond. There's various things on here, things like setting routines and boundaries, like sitting together at a table, having dinner and not allowing any electronic devices. It can be super difficult to do, but once you get into that habit of it, it's great. Memory jar. I've got mine floating around here somewhere. There we go. So I've got a little memory jar. That is probably one of my favourite things, if I'm honest. It's a little jar that everybody pops in a positive thing that's happened, or a great memory, something really positive that you can reflect on. So on New Year's Eve, we'll have a look, we'll go through everything that's happened in our year, and then you start afresh as the year comes through. It's probably one of my favourites because we can quite often really forget what our years looked like, particularly if it's ended on a little bit of a downer or something really difficult's been happening. You can really forget all the amazing stuff that's happened across the years. The memory, honestly, I'd reckon you can just get any jar. It doesn't even have to be a jar. It can be a little tub. And literally next to my little jar, I've got a little pad of paper, a pen, so the kids just go and just pop stuff in as and when it comes up. It's one of the things I definitely say is worth doing. Cheap as anything to do. Take lots of pictures and set family goals, but more importantly than any of these, it's about having fun together and making every moment count, because the kids grow up so quick. Your family unit changes so fast, and it is about just taking it all in and just enjoying every moment of it. But like I said before, it's really, really important to think about yourself in all of that and not forget yourself, and just to do things together as a family, because that can make life that much easier. And on a final note, it's remembering that every family is different. Like I said earlier, there's no perfect family. Every family is different. It's made up of different people. You've all got different parts to play. It's about finding what works for you and your family. It's about creating your own family well-being. But don't forget, be kind to yourself. We live in a world where we are exposed to so much. We're exposed to so much via the internet. You've got your TikTok, you've got your social media, you've got, Instagram reels and YouTube and all of these different things that telling you what you should be doing and how you should be doing it. But actually, what's really important is doing things that work for you, and try not to get sucked into what other people are doing, because a lot of it's not even real. Okay. But it's just taking it all in and going, I'm going to do what works for me, and I am doing my best. And I know I haven't really left very long for questions. I've only left a few minutes, I'm afraid. But any questions in terms of family wellbeing, anything you want to know? There are some resources here that I have put together if anybody wants to take any of them down, because that can often be quite helpful as well. Jake, I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you for listening and taking part. You've put so many comments in there. I'm going to go back and have a look at them all as well. I really appreciate all your interaction. And I'm going to hand over to Jake in case there are any questions.
Yeah, as you expect, Kieran, there are already quite a few that I've already mounted up, and I'll try my best to get a hold of any others that come in the next few minutes as well.
Okay.
But before I do, just want to say thank you as well on behalf of everyone that's attended today. A lot of thank you comments flying through as well. So everyone really appreciates your time, your openness, Kieran, about everything. So thank you for that. The first question that we had come through, how do you find who you are again? When you feel like you've lost yourself a while ago, how do you redefine yourself as more than just a parent?
Do you know what? And that's actually a really difficult question, because and if I will talk about myself for a second here. So I completely resonate with you. So I'm a parent. I'm a single parent to two kids. When my marriage ended, I mean, I'm a survivor of domestic abuse. So when all of that went through, I didn't know who I was. I was like, I'm a mum and I'm in this midst of being a mum, but who am I in all of that? And I completely lost it. And I've got to say, I mean, I'm about 6 years down the line now, and I'm still trying to rediscover who I am. But actually, what I've found is really, really helpful has been talking to friends and family, talking to people that really mean something to me and who have been through that journey with me, but actually your own therapy. It's so important to take time out for you and doing those things that we've talked about earlier today, those self-care bits, looking at actually what do I enjoy. Somebody asked me recently, so what do you like doing? And I kind of went, I've started doing things in just get used to doing stuff and my day just carries on. I say recently, it was probably a few months back now. But somebody asked me, so what do you do? What do you like doing? And I went, I don't know, because everything I've always gone, I need to do this and I need to do that and I need to do this. And I really had to stop and think about what do I like? I don't really know. So it took me a little while to find that. So the answer to that would probably be actually just try everything. Go try different things. It's about looking at what you feel you like now. Sometimes we can look back and go, I'm not that person I used to be, but do I still like any of that? Do I still want to be a little bit like that person I was, or do I want to be somebody completely different? So it's about rediscovering all of those the life you've got now and what works for you now. So it's just about a little bit of it is trial and error, but it's working on yourself, self-care, putting those boundaries in and getting that support as well. That was a
Thank
really
you, Kieran.
long-winded answer. Sorry.
No, it's a great answer. Thank you. We had quite a few questions, as you've now mentioned, boundaries. And the general consensus of these questions is around what is the best style or any tips that you may have to resolve situations where boundaries can cause confliction? So in some cases here, we've had people say that their kids interpret it as they're taking it as, well, I'm doing something wrong. We've got someone here that's saying, well, why wouldn't you want to do that? Is there any tips or tricks you've got for the best approach for when it comes to boundaries?
The best approach with boundaries is communication, is actually explaining your viewpoint, is actually explaining where you're coming from. So i.e. with the children that you've sort of mentioned there, they feel like they're doing something wrong, but it's actually about you sort of saying, no, this isn't about you. This is about me. This is what I need. This is about how I look at things. And for me to feel a bit more positive, for me to be able to manage myself, this is what I need from you. And it's the same with work as well. It's about being able to kind of go, actually, this is what I need for me. What was the second part to that, Jake? Sorry.
Any more about like, yeah, you've pretty much nailed it, to be honest, Kieran,
Oh.
about just the confliction. It was all about that segment of it, that you don't want to cause any
We want to
situation that can
upset
cause further
people.
detriment. Yeah,
Yeah. And that's usually it. We don't want to upset people. We don't want to say no. So it is about making sure that it's that communication is absolutely key when you're setting boundaries so that you don't upset people and they don't just go, well, what do you mean no? But if you're explaining what that means and putting in an alternative that works for you, working with that person.
great. Thank you, Kieran. Another question we had come through. How do you get out of the vicious cycle of being stressed and overwhelmed, which leads to snapping at your child, then feeling guilty, and then not having the time to fully refresh? For example, this individual was finding it hard to break that whole cycle.
Yeah, I completely hear you on this one. So for this, again, it's that finding that space for you. Like I was saying when I started this, to say, actually, I found, and I used to be that parent where I was snapping all the time. And I did find I was snapping all the time because I'm busy at work. I do long days. I'm trying to manage everything on my own. And I did find that I was having no space for me. And yes, it means I get a little bit less sleep now, but actually I get up in the morning to give myself that 45 minutes of me time. So it makes my day run a little bit smoother. So it's about making just finding that little bit of space for you, wherever that is. It doesn't have to be at the beginning of the day, whether maybe it's at the end of the day when the kids have sort of gone to bed, but it's about spending that little bit of space for you to be able to spend. It's that self-care. It comes back to that self-care. It's taking the time out for you, and then you will slowly find that you are getting off that cycle, because ultimately when you feel better within yourself, your reactions will be very different. You'll be able to step back, you'll be able to think before you react, and you won't be so irritable as well.
Thank you, Kieran.
No
Another
problem.
question that we had, then I'm conscious of time as well. The newly diagnosed autistic child is the eldest, and they have two younger siblings. The parent finds it hard to prevent his behavior impacting the rest of their children. How do you recommend managing that balance and not feeling like you're falling apart? And a similar kind of question has came through from another participant, but they've added on, do you have any suggestions of spaces that parents can go to when it's talking about neurodiversity children?
I think some of that might depend on area. I'm not 100% sure if there are any spaces that you can go to. But in terms of the family aspect and the impact on the younger siblings, or even older siblings sometimes, when you talk about the impact on siblings, it's about those family well-being strategies that we talked about. It's about maybe things such as it's doing something together as a family. But actually, again, it comes down to communication as well, ensuring that those younger ones do understand what's happening. It's having those open communications, so there's no big secret in terms of what's going on. But sometimes it's about the other children being able to see that, yes, there's something else happening here. Yes, there's something happening, but we're not being left out either. So it's having them all included in what's happening, and just creating those little pockets of family strategies. It's creating that bits of family time to help everybody feel connected, and just to help make sure that nobody feels like they're being left out of that. But again, it does come down to your communication as well. Have those conversations. You'd be surprised how much kids understand.
Thank you, Kieran. And this individual was referring to how do they create that space within their working capacity. So is there any suggestions that you have, for example, like within CiC, that you could say to our group of, right, this is an idea I have. How would you go about creating that idea into something that can become a support network?
Yes, absolutely. Do you know what? Your relationship with your line manager is absolutely key, and with your colleagues as well. Because if you can, I mean, I don't know what role everybody does, but I know it came up in ours, where we have now started to take we're looking at giving people a little bit extra, like wellbeing time to be able to reflect as well. But it is about talking to your line manager can make a big difference. Actually telling them what's going on for you. One of the things I do find when you're really, really sort of stuck for time at work is looking at how much work, what is the workload that you've got. So I always get everybody to try and give a bit of a list of what a typical day looks like for you. Put it down, write it all down. It sounds like a really mundane task to do, but if you do that for a couple of days, put down all the tasks and everything that you're spending time on, take that to your line manager and go, look, this is the expectation that's been put on me. I can't do that, because you've got to think about yourself and your own space as well. Your diaries, use it. Make sure that you block out those bits for yourself, whether it's blocking out time to go for emails, lunch breaks, make sure you're blocking them out and actually adhere to them, actually stick to them.
Right, thank you, Kieran. And
No
my
worries.
apologies if I've missed any further questions in the chat, but I believe we've covered as many consensus and big topics that were asked in the chat. So, Kieran, I'll leave it over you to conclude the session.
So thank you, everybody. By all means, if anybody ever wants to come to me, you can drop us an email. You can get in touch with us. I am on LinkedIn as well, so you're more than welcome to connect through LinkedIn too. Thank you for attending, and actually being so great with the chat as well. Everybody's really engaged really well. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest